So today we will try to animate 3D objects. We'll create filters where we are able to animate 3D objects. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, let's first open up Spark AR Studio. Okay, let's open a blank project. Okay, so what are we going to do? We are going to animate a 3D object. So obviously we'll need a 3D object. Okay, so let's try. 3D objects are available in AR library. Okay, so let's click the AR library and then click on 3D objects. Okay, so we can choose one of these images. Let's see more images. Okay, let's go. What do we want? So what should we animate? Okay, so okay, so I guess this is hi there guys, I have made a model of the SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus with all the correct protein. This model is correctly labeled with every name. It's free to use as you want. Okay, let's try using this. So we have to click on the import icon and it will download, and once it is done it will show as done. So import for free. Has it been imported? Yeah, it has been imported. Okay, so I said was already imported. Okay, I tried to import it twice. Okay, so it has already been imported. Okay, so this is the 3D object that we are going to use. Okay, this is they have included an environment variable to the texture. Okay, so this is the 3D object. So you can identify with this name here. Okay, so if you click on this icon and then check here on the inspector panel, it says 3D objects. Okay, so if you want to know what type of asset is here, you can use the inspector panel to identify it. If you click here, it gives an option for shader type. So shader type information is available for material. So this is a material, this is a texture, so it looks similar, but if you click here you can realize that it's mentioned as texture. Okay, so this is helpful when you try to when you import objects from the library. Okay, and this is environment texture. Okay, so we are going to animate this 3D object. Okay, so what should we do with this? Okay, so we want to animate 3D objects. Okay, let's maximize this. So okay, let's import this item here. Okay, so now it has been imported to our uh, scene. Okay, so as you can see that the size is quite large, so we need to reduce the size of this object. Okay, so let's see what I included here. So the protein, so this I would say it's a very detailed 3D object. Okay, so we need to reduce the size of the a 3D object. Okay, so you can use this. So this is the one size. So this is the, excuse me, so this is the default size. Okay, and so you can use this tab to reduce the size. Okay, so reduce the size diagonally. So if you do that, what happens? So it squeeze, right? So let's bring it down, let's bring it down, let's bring it down, and then let's bring it down. Okay, now we have the bias here. Okay, so it's small, so let's increase it slightly. Okay, along the y-axis, the yellow color is the, so you can see that the yellow color is the y-axis. Okay, and then the red color is the y-axis. If you select it, it will turn into yellow, and then the green color, okay, it's the y-axis. The red axis is the red one is the x-axis. Okay, and then this blue one, okay, this is the y-axis, z-axis. Okay, so it has been elongated, so it has not been elongated. Okay, so I'm selecting this. So I'm not selected. So when I excuse, okay, so sometimes it's difficult to scale the items using this. Okay, so roughly you have an idea when it is about 0.3, the size, you can see the size, right? So let's try manipulating it. 0.3 is little small, so you can change it to about 0.05. Let's see what happens. Let's make it, okay, this looks good. 0.05. Okay, so let's make it 0.05. Okay, so I think it's good. Okay, this is a good size. Okay, so if you look here, uh, it's a style of the camera texture. Okay, so we have made this 3D object as a style of the camera texture. Okay, so yeah, but it's doing nothing. Okay, so it's doing nothing. If you move the camera, you can see that the object is moving along with the camera. Okay, it means that this 3D object is a child of the camera. Okay, so right now this 3D object is static. Okay, so we want to apply some sort of animation. Okay, so animation like when if you touch the screen, uh, it disappears, it rotates, something like that. Okay, or you can use the facial expression. So if you act surprised, right, open your mouth and raise your eyebrows, um, uh, the COVID comes out. Okay, the virus comes out. Okay, something like that. We can try it. So let's use face tracker for that. Okay, so we have this face tracker, but so if you see here, this 3D object is not a child of the face tracker, so it will not move if the person moves their face. So I want the 3D object to respond to the movement of the face. Okay, not just the movement, but so the 3D tracker will track all the movement of the face, like the eye, the nose, the mouth, everything, every facial expression. It will be detected by the face tracker, and then we can use those gesture to control the 3D object. Okay, so let's make it a child. This 3D object is a child of the face tracker, so that we can use those gesture. Okay, so right now you can see that earlier it used uh, it used to be static, so this is also some sort of animation, right? So the virus is stuck to the nose and it is moving along with the movement of the face. When the person moves it to the left, when the person moves it to the right, okay, so the 3D object moves along with it. Okay, we don't want just we don't want the object to just stick on the person's face. Okay, we want it to spin, we want it to rotate, we want it to make it disappear when the person does something. Okay, let's do something along those lines. Okay, so yeah, so what type of facial expression should we use? What type of facial expression should we use? Okay, so if you act surprise, if you act surprise, like if you open your mouth and if you raise your eyebrows, the virus appears on the screen. Let's do that. Okay, so let's open up this patch editor. Okay, so patch editor, if you click on the view option, there's an option for show patch editor, right? Click on that. Okay, so you have this patch editor, so we can create patches and then use to create graph, and we can use it to create graphs, to create interactions. Okay, so now what should we do? We want a mouth detector, like the openness of the mouth, whether the person opens his mouth or not. So if you click here at the bottom, patch editor, so we have something called mouth open. So if you click here and then click on add, so we have this patch. Okay, so we have this patch. Okay, what does it requires? Okay, this is the input side and this is the output side, so it needs a face. Okay, so this person face will be the face. Okay, and then it will give an open state. Okay, open state, consider it as whether the person open its mouth or not. Okay, if the person open the mouth, a signal will be sent out. It will check whether the person open his mouth or not. Okay, and openness, open state is used to detect if the person open is his or her mouth. Okay, openness, how much, how wide the person open his mouth. Okay, so I want this. Okay, so the person open his mouth and then the virus should come up. Okay, not just that, I want the person to raise their eyebrows. Okay, raise. So when you act surprised, you open your mouth and you raise your eyebrows, right? So we have a patch for that. Okay, so eyebrow, you see this, right? Eyebrows raise. Okay, excuse me, we can use this patch to detect. Okay, so we have these two patches. Okay, so and then we want to make this 3D object appear only when two things happen. Okay, not just a person opening the mouth. So if you open your mouth while you speak, it will appear. We don't want to do that. We want the person to act surprised. Okay, so the person should open his mouth and at the same time to raise his eyebrow. Otherwise, if you speak and if you open your mouth, the object will appear. Okay, so you want to add additional condition for this object to appear. Okay, in that case, we'll apply additional condition, and then these two condition we can combine it using the help of logic logic patches. We have or patch and patch. Okay, so let's create a patch called n. Okay, so what happens? So what this patch will do? Okay, it requires two inputs. Okay, and gives out one output. Okay, so the output, it will generate an output signal only when it detects two uh, uh, two signals. Okay, so if you connect these two, okay, so it requires two signals. Okay, it will generate an output only when it will generate an output only when there are two signals. So if the person open uh, his or her mouth but does not raise his eyebrow, so only one signal comes in, so it will not generate an output. If the person raises their eyebrows but does not does not open their mouth, then only this signal will be active, and then there will be no signal on this, so there will be no output. But the person opened their mouth, but if the person opened their mouth and at the same time raise their eyebrows, then a signal will be generated. only if there are two signals at the same time. Okay, so we want this signal. Okay, and then what do we want it to happen? Okay, we want this object to appear only if there are two signals. Okay, so the visibility of the 3D object in the scene is controlled by this visibility option. Okay, visibility option. Okay, we have selected this 3D object, and if you go to the inspector panel of this 3D object, if you check mark this, the object appears. If you uncheck this, the object disappears. So obviously we are going to use this property to make to appear and to make the object appear and disappear. Okay, if you click excuse me. Okay, so if you look at the inspector panel, there are some properties where there is an arrow, and there are some properties where there is no arrow. Okay, so every property of an object or an asset where it includes an arrow, we can generate a patch by clicking on it. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, if you click here on the arrow, it generates a patch. Okay, now we check this and uncheck this. Okay, but we don't want, so on our effect will not be able to click on the patch. There is no patch editor, there is no patch, so we cannot click and unclick here. So this will be controlled by this input. Okay, so this will be controlled whether so this visibility will be controlled by the output of this n patch. Okay, so it grays out, it means that we are no longer able to click and change it manually. Rather, the output of the n patch controls the visibility. Okay, so we have this. Okay, so what are the things that are missing? Okay, so right now we have the visibility, we have the mouth openness, but what but how will we detect the face? Okay, for that we need uh, the face tracker. Okay, so let's click on this camera texture and then click and drop it here. Let's see what happens. Okay, we don't need this camera. Okay, so let's click on this face tracker and drop it here. Okay, let's see what just happened. So there are 3 patches that have been created. Okay, so we can move it at the top. Okay, and then we can select all these 3. So the green signal, the green boundary will indicate that all those items that have been selected. Okay, a little down. Okay, so when we click here and then drop it in the patch editor, 3 patches has been selected. Okay, so face finder, face select, and face tracker. Let's see what all these 3 patches does. Okay, and one interesting thing to note here is that, okay, so if you see here, okay, if you see at the objects here, the face tracker object, the 3D object, okay, so we have this arrow, blue arrow, where there's a line and an arrow pointing outward, and then another object wherein there's a line and an arrow points towards the line. Okay, so it indicates that it is an output patch. So it indicates that an output patch added in the patch editor. An output patch has been added in the patch editor. So what is an output patch? Okay, so output patch generates a signal. Okay, consider it as a generator. So we have generators at home, right? So the generator generates electricity. Okay, so this is an object which generates signal. Okay, so this will generate signal. Okay, and here if you click click on this microphone and then click on this yellow icon, input patch added in the patch editor. Okay, input patch added in the patch editor. Okay, consider input patch as bulbs. Okay, the electricity generated by the generator, and then so where does the electricity goes? Okay, the electricity is consumed by the bulb. Okay, so but with the help of the bulb we are able to see things around us, just like that. So it's been the uh, signal generated by the face tracker is consumed by the visibility patch here, and then we are able to see the objects in the scene. Okay, so it consumes the signal generated by the face tracker, and because of that particular patch we are able to see objects in the scene in the simulator. Okay, so that's output patch and input patch. Consider generator and bulb. Okay, okay, face finder. Okay, so face finder, so if you remember, so it's so the camera can detect multiple faces. Okay, not just one face. Okay, it can detect multiple faces. If if the camera on your laptop sees two person, okay, we can apply the filter to two persons. Okay, but here we are going to use we are going to detect only one person. Okay, so this face finder detect how many faces are detected by the camera. Okay, select face. Okay, so if in case it detects two face, okay, so if you want to select, if you want to identify what happens with the face one, and if you want to uh, uh, identify what happens with the second face, we so suppose if there are two face, okay, and then if you want something to happen on phase one and something to happen on phase two, we can select the particular phase. Okay, so the selection is done with the help of index. Okay, counting starts with 0 in computer, so we identify the first phase as index of 0, the second phase would be identified an index of 1, the third phase will be identified and the second phase will be identified by entering as index 2. Okay, the first phase detected by the camera of the laptop or the phone, the of the phone in which the person is using this particular effect, we are going to select it using the help of this index. The first phase is identified as index of 0. This is how we select the phase out of all the phase that has been detected by the camera. Okay, so the phase has been identified. Okay, and so right now a particular phase has been selected, the first phase detected by the camera. So what should happen? Okay, the phase selected by the camera. Okay, so face tracker, so face tracker, so it is a very powerful tool, and then it detects all the movement uh, of the face. Okay, it can detect uh, the openness of your eyes, your mouth. Okay, so the wrinkles. Okay, if have you raised your eyebrows, have you opened your mouth? Okay, yeah, all those things is detected with the help of face tracker. Okay, so so the face tracker, it has detect, so we have selected one particular face. Okay, so in that phase, we are going to use the face tracker, and then it detects all the tiny movement of the face, like the openness of the mouth, yeah, all those things. Okay, it has been detected, and then you see this. So from the face tracker, okay, out of all the information, we want the mouth openness. So the face tracker has the ability to detect the openness of the mouth. That's why we are out of the face, we are taking just the mouth open. Okay, so it has a lot of features. Out of that, we want to get the mouth open. Okay, and then it also it is also able to detect the, how much the eyebrows has been raised. Okay, so from that face tracker, we want to get the information about how much the eyebrow has raised. Okay, so here let's see what happened. Okay, so this person squeeze their face, and then when he open his mouth and raise his voice, okay, what happened? The two signal, so if you look closely here, carefully look here, two signal will fire. Okay, two signal fired here, right? And then because of that, it this NGAT detects that two signal has been fired at the same time, and then we are able to, a signal has been generated, and then it it, it triggers the visibility property, and then uh, the effect appears. Okay, yeah, this is how we can create animation of 3D objects in uh, our filters using 3D objects. So 3D object, the face tracker, how to use the end patch. Okay, like this. So what type of features can we add? Okay, so we can make the so it appears and disappears. So what type of animation that we can appear on the 3D object, we can identify it, we can think about what type of object, we can think about more creative ways of animating 3D objects uh, by clicking the 3D object. This is at least how I think about animating the 3D object. So if you see here the transformation, if you select the 3D object and under the inspector panel, you look at here the transformations. Okay, the transformation. Okay, so we have an animation, we have a property called position. Okay, so if what if you want to make a so right now when the person open his mouth and raise his eyebrows, it appears at the nose all the time. What if you want to make it appear at one position, the second time, the third, another position, the third time, the fourth position? That you can make that changes with the help of this position property. What about if you how much the person is excited, based on that how much, how it's, if you want to change the size, the volume of the 3D object based on how much the person uh, open his mouth. So suppose, okay, so we have another feature called openness, right? So what if we scale the object? Okay, let's select this object, let's do something with this object. Okay, this property. Okay, so we have an option called uh, so we have another signal called openness. How much did the person open their mouth? Okay, so right now the size of the 3D object is static. Okay, so if you want to increase the size based on how much the mouth open, we can use this property openness. Okay, so openness, if you click here at the information, so openness, what is it? What, so the mouth, the amount the mouth is open, zero is closed, one is open. Okay, it generates a number between 0 and 1. Okay, so but the volume, so the volume of any object, the volume of any object uh, is determined by the length, breadth, and height, right? So consider xyg as length, breadth, and height. So right now this is the normal size. Okay, please make a note of this. So we want the 3D object to start at 0.05 as the length, as the x-axis. Consider it as length. Okay, 0.05 as the length. Okay, and then 0.05 also as the breadth, and then 0.05 as the uh, height. Okay, so this is a normal size. Okay, so we want to increase the volume based on the openness. Okay, so it requires three values, but it's able to give just a number, right? So in this case we will need something called uh, transition patch, transition patch. Okay, so we want the volume to start, so to transition pace. Okay, so we have seen that the openness. Okay, so openness, the amount, the mouth is open, 0 is closed, 1 is open. Okay, so it will start at a value of 0. Okay, and ends at a value of 1. So 1 is the extreme, and then 0 is the minimum. Okay, so it will generate a number if you click here and join it to the progress. So it will increase, it will start at 0 and open and at 1. Okay, so but and so why do we need this? Okay, so So let's disconnect it for now. Okay, so this transition panel, transition patch, so where do we use this? Okay, it 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 is used to create a relationship between two values, a relative relationship. It's not direct translation of the correct, of the exact information that is coming from this openness, but it creates a relationship. So when it is 1, make the value as uh, 0.05 as the length. Okay, 0.05 as the breadth, and 0.05 as the height. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, so it will progress. This progress value will depend on the input value. This progress value will depend on the input value. So the progress value should always be a range of number. Okay, so in this case the openness gives a value of 0 as the minimum and 1 as the maximum. So the openness value will range from 0 to 1. Okay, so when the openness value is 0, okay, I want the size of uh, the 3D object to be 0.05 on the x-axis, 0.05 on the y-axis, and 0.05 on the z-axis. But we have already seen that, okay, so if 0.05 is the minimum value, then if 1 will be too much, it will be very large. Okay, when you first open the 3D object, you have seen that the 3D object fill the scene completely, right? So let's make it about 0.1. Okay, so 0.1, and then this 0.1. Okay, so the object, the size of the 3D object should increase from this 0.05 to 0.1. Let's see what happens. Okay, let's connect this value. Okay, let's connect this to the progress. Okay, let's see what happens. Yeah, now you see that, right? It increases the size of the object. Okay, so let's make it about, so the difference is about 10 times, right? So let's make it even a little dramatic to see um, the changes. So fine. Okay, let's see what happens. Wow, that was scary, right? So let's make it about 0.2. Let's make it about 0.2, about 0.2. Now you have observed that, right? So when the mouth starts opening, the detection will start. Okay, and the object will appear. The detection will start, the object will appear, and the size will be determined by how much the mouth has been opened, right? So this is a second animation feature. Okay, so you might have seen that there's another feature called rotation. Okay, so right now the object appear, the object scales in size, and at the same time, if you want to make the object rotate, okay, if you want to make the object rotate, we can do this with the help of this rotation patch. Okay, click here. Let's make the virus rotates. Okay, so at this normal position, it started uh, this x value at minus 90. Let's make a note of this x value at minus 90, and then y, and then g. Okay, y and then g. Okay, y and then g as 0 0. Okay, let's make changes. Okay, let's keep the x-axis as minus 90, and then let's try making changes to the value of y and g. Okay, so if you want to make something rotate, we'll need another patch, okay, called animation patch. Okay, so this loop animation. So there are multiple animation player, frame transition, keyframe, and then we have this loop animation. Turn the animation on and off. Okay, duration, the length of the animation in seconds. Okay, let's select this. Okay, trigger the loop animation to start again, play the animation forward, then go backward, progress the animation progress. 0 is a start and 1 is a complete loop. This sends a signal when its animation loop is complete. Okay, let's click. We will understand more when we uh, use this. Okay, so if we look here, so the rotation checks as enable. Okay, so we want, if we don't want to click it manually. Okay, so we want it to be triggered by something else. Okay, and then you see here it's asking for a progress value, and you might you have seen it from the information, patch information, that the progress value is start from 0 as a minimum and 1 as the maximum. Okay, and duration, the animation will play for 1 second. The unit is in 1 second. Okay, duration, the length of the animation. Okay, in 1 second. Reset, mirror, we'll discuss it later on. Okay, so progress is asking for 3 values. Okay, so obviously we'll need a translation, a patch, right, to translate this. So the progress value will increase from 0 to 1. So this increment, we want to translate it to another value. Okay, that's a 3D value. Okay, so click here. So translation patch. So translation patch, we have this translation phase. So right now you might be familiar, right? So before we make any sort of connection, okay, let's consider the starting point. Okay, the starting point, so we want to start at, okay, minus 90 on the x-axis, and 0 on the y-axis, and 0 on the 0 on the z-axis. And then what do we want to do? We don't want any changes on the x-axis. We want that position on the x-axis. Okay, and then we'll see, we'll check with the so how much the value, what value to be entered in the y and the z axis by typing it manually. Okay, so let's enable this loop. So we are just consider it as the visibility patch. So when you click on the visibility patch, the 3D object appears. Likewise, if you enable this, the signal will be triggered. Okay, so we will use something to trigger the signal, but for now let's manually enable this and click the progress button. Okay, and let's see what happens to the rotational value. Okay, so if you make this rotational value as 0 to 1 on the y-axis, so nothing happens, right? It stays stationary. Let's see, this is the degree, right? So round rotation, let's make this as 360, 0 to 360. Let's see what happens. Okay, so you can see that the object starts rotating, right? The object starts rotating, right? Okay, so if you look here, so if you zoom here, the object is rotating. Okay, the object is rotating. Okay, so if you look at the rotation value, okay, so if you look at the rotation, so if you look at the rotation is on the clockwise, and it just came back immediately, fluctuation. So if you click on the mirror icon, what happens? So it will rotate and then come back. Okay, so we don't want that for this animation. I guess this is better. When the animation triggers, okay, the object rotates. Okay, so I guess this is enough. Okay, if you, let's see what happens if we make the z axis as the change the z axis value to 360. So it rotates in a different motion, right? So I get changing the value in the z axis was a y axis was better, so let's make it rotate at 360. Start from 0 and then ends at 360. Okay, so either you can enable this loop animation manually. Okay, so the object will keep on rotating, but will the object will start appearing uh, only when the mouth and the eyebrows are raised. Or else you can make the animation, you can enable this animation with the help of this uh, signal coming out from the end gate. Okay, so if you use this to connect here, okay, so what happens, right? So right now it will trigger not only with the help, it will be, so it will stay stationary unless and until the person open their mouth and raise their eyebrow at the same time earlier. So if you disconnect this and enable it manually, the object will rotate all the time. Okay, even if there is no eyebrow raise or mouth open. Okay, if you click it here, so it will be enabled only when it will stay stationary, and it will be enabled only when the person open their mouth. Okay, so this uh, tutorial yeah. So I hope this tutorial you find it useful, and yeah, please leave a comment and please subscribe to the channel. I'll try to improve the quality of the video, the tutorial and everything. And yeah, so please support, and uh, yeah, please support by subscribing. Okay, so see you on the next one. I will end this one. Thank you.